Welcome to I&E's CCIE Data Center 3.1 Learning Path. My name is Brian McGann, and I'll be your instructor for the courses throughout this path. I'm a CCIE in Data Center, along with Routing and Switching, which is now Enterprise Infrastructure, Service Provider, and Security. I'm also a Cisco Certified Design Expert, or a CCDE, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about what this learning path covers. Okay, so first and foremost, this learning path is based on the latest CCIE Data Center version 3.1 blueprint that Cisco releases, and we have our learning path broken down into the different subsections based on the blueprint. So we have 7 sections, first of which is Layer 2, Layer 3 connectivity, which is going to be things like classical Layer 2 Ethernet switching, virtual port channels on NXOS, and then Layer 3 routing, so like OSPF, EIGRP, ISIS, BGP. And then as you look at the individual courses in the learning path, the general format for these is that there is going to be some videos on the background technology, and then there's short quizzes that test your knowledge to make sure you remember what we had just talked about. And then there's also hands-on labs that are kind of sprinkled in throughout here. Okay, like this one here, classical Ethernet on NXOS, that you can get hands-on access onto the virtual equipment in order to try out a bunch of these different scenarios. Okay, so beyond Nexus, Layer 2 switching, virtual port channels, and Layer 3 routing, the next major one we have is application-centric infrastructure. So in the ACI course, I basically start from the 100% beginning, assuming that you don't know nothing about application-centric infrastructure. So what is the system? How do you pull it out of the box, do the basic initial setup? And then we start to get into the design of how ACI works differently than classical Ethernet switches. So how does the object model work? How do the contracts work in terms of filtering in ACI? And then one of the additions to the .1 blueprint for Data Center version 3 is that ACI now also includes both multi-pod and multi-site. And then also the same is true for VXLAN EVPN, which is covered in 2 different courses in the learning path, which is automating VXLAN BGP EVPN using the Nexus dashboard fabric controller, or the NDFC. And then there's also another course that is configuring VXLAN from the command line, which is under here, Section 4, Data Center Fabric Connectivity. Okay, under the automating VXLAN with Nexus dashboard course, there's also hands-on labs that are built in to this course. And the main difference from the other ones that are doing just like Layer 2 switching is that you can configure the switches from the command line like you can in normal regular Cisco iOS routers, but then also you can control it from the Nexus dashboard. So that's another addition to the .1 blueprint for CCIE Data Center, is that you need to know how to configure EVPN, VXLAN EVPN, 2 different ways: from the command line interface completely, or using the Nexus dashboard and then the fabric controller to build these automation workflows in order to then deploy those configurations onto the switches. Okay, so in the learning path, there's labs that cover both. They cover the CLI and they cover the GUI, which is going to be with automating VXLAN. Okay, beyond that, we also cover the unified computing system. So that's going to be Section 4, which is implementing Cisco UCS. Okay, then that goes along with Section 6, which is storage area network switching. So you would be using the UCS system as the end hosts that are trying to mount storage across the network. And then in the storage switching class, we look at how do we configure the Nexus switches and the legacy MDS switches for fiber channel switching, for fiber channel over Ethernet, for IP connectivity, for iSCSI, in order for the servers to get connectivity to their storage volumes across the network. Okay, then Section 7 is kind of miscellaneous topics: security features, network services, quality of service. This is both from the command line point of view on the Nexus switches, and then in the individual platforms like the ACI and then the Nexus dashboard fabric controller. I also talk about how to implement these different types of features. Okay, then we have automation and orchestration, which is split into two different subsections. This first one here, Data Center Automation Solutions, talks about how do we interact with the different APIs of the Nexus switches, of the ACI, of the UCS, of the intersite, which is to control multiple UCS domains at the same time from the cloud effectively. And then also the second portion of this is automating VXLAN using the Nexus dashboard. Okay, then at the end, there's an additional section after you go through all of the, let me go back one page. After you go through all of the individual technology sections, there's a final preparation section that goes back as an exam review over the kind of the very high important points. Okay, so specifically that covers things like classical layer 2 switching and virtual port channel, VXLAN and BGP EVPN on Nexus, and then also ACI and the UCS. Now, one thing that's also unique about CCIE Data Center is that the equipment used in the exam is split between virtual and physical. So some of the playlists do include labs, hands-on labs that use the Nexus 9000V virtual switch. So anything that has to do with the Nexus command line, either layer 2 switching, layer 3 routing, VXLAN on Nexus, or automating it from the Nexus dashboard. And then miscellaneous things like security services, QoS, you can do those features on the virtual switches. Okay, some of the other topics require hardware, which would be mainly the UCS and then also the ACI. Okay, so there are some links here to the UCS platform emulator and then how to get access to the ACI sandbox for free from DevNet Sandbox. So you'll see a link in the description here that talks more about that, the different details of the equipment access. But you do need to be aware of that. Some of the labs are virtualized, but some of the topics in this blueprint require hardware. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in our CCIE Data Center version 3.1 learning path.